So Professor Greely, I've heard you lecture on the ethics of different patient cases, but today we're talking about ethical issues that may come up in big data. Can you tell me about some of these cases?
Sure, I think big data raises lots of interesting issues. It has lots of potential. It is exciting to be able to think about looking at hundreds, thousands, millions of different data points for thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, hundreds of millions potentially of people. But I think we have to remember that those aren't just data points. Those are measurements, family histories, health histories, DNA sequences of people who either now are living and breathing or who have been living and breathing. And those people and their descendants care about that information. So it's big data for scientists. It's life histories and DNA and identifying information and personal secrets for the people they're getting it from. It's really easy to think of it once it turns into ones and zeros in a digital memory base as data, but it's people. And the ethical issues come from the fact that it is people, exacerbated by the fact that the way we use it disguises the fact that it's people.
And what is the process by which people give this information up? Is there some sort of consent?
It varies enormously. For the most part, with most existing collections, people have given some consent. They've given consent to research use of their health records or their family history or their physical samples or their DNA, but typically it's consent for a particular project. I give consent for Brown University to study the genetics of Parkinson's using my DNA and my family history. Those consents will almost always also say, and other uses. And what happens is the Parkinson's genetic data, the genome-wide association studies based on Parkinson's, then get moved to a bigger database. Specifically, that one and many of them get moved to a federal database called dbGaP, the database of genotypes and phenotypes. Once it's there, it can be used by any researcher who comes up with a plausible reason to use it for basically anything he or she wants. Now, those people in Rhode Island who participated in a Parkinson's study had no idea that dbGaP existed, had no idea that their data was going into that, had no idea that anybody would use it. Somebody who was really reading the consent form carefully, maybe one person in a million, would see, and other uses. I wonder what those are. But that's their only clue that this is happening. So there's consent, but there's not really consent, I would say, at least not consent to this widespread use. The other issue is once it is in a database and is de-identified, we don't think of that as a human subject anymore. So the federal law regulating human subjects research, the regulation called the Common Rule, defines human subjects research as either something where there's a new intervention with a person or you're using personally identifiable data about them. Well, we strip off the names, the social security numbers, the email addresses, and we say, well, it's not personally identifiable anymore. But that's somewhere between a myth and a lie. Because if it's a rich enough data set to actually be useful, it's a rich enough data set that somebody who cared could go back into it and look for Asian American woman living in this zip code, born this year, with this health history. So the ability to re-identify de-identified data is growing enormously with all of our computerization of data. And that makes this idea that de-identified data somehow aren't yours, can't harm you, you shouldn't care about them, makes that increasingly wrong.
Thank you so much, Professor Greely, for your time and telling us about the ethical side of big data.
Sure, my pleasure. Good luck with the tapings.